When I opened the bedroom door that evening, I didn't expect to lose my entire world in one glance. The light was dim, the kind that painted shadows across the floor. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, my perfume, the one only I wore. But it wasn't me who'd left it there. That was the first thing that made me pause. The second was the sound. Soft laughter, too intimate, too familiar. And then, as if the universe was determined to shatter every illusion I'd built, I saw them, my husband. My twin sister, entwined in the half-dark whispering words I couldn't even hear, because the silence inside me was louder than anything else. In that moment, I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just stood there, watching the life I'd built turn to dust. I should start from the beginning, before everything rotted beneath the surface. Before I learned that love can wear the same face as betrayal. My name is Emma. My twin sister's name is Eva. People used to say we were identical, like two sides of a mirror. But growing up, we couldn't have been more different. Eva was the fire, bold, magnetic, impossible to ignore. I was the quiet one, the steady one, the one who made plans and kept them. She lived for attention. I lived for stability. But we loved each other fiercely. We were each other's shadow, finishing sentences, sharing secrets, protecting one another. At least I thought we were. When we were kids, Mom used to dress us alike, matching ribbons, matching shoes. She'd smile and say, "My two little angels always together." I believed that. Through school, through heartbreaks, through college, Eva and I stayed close. Even when she chased every thrill and I chose a quieter life, we never drifted too far. Then I met Daniel. He wasn't the type to stand out in a crowd, but his gentleness drew me in. He was patient, the kind of man who listened when you spoke, who remembered how you liked your coffee, who smiled with his eyes. He made me feel safe. Eva teased me at first, said he was too boring for me. But I didn't mind. I'd had enough of chaos. I wanted peace. Daniel and I married 2 years later in a small ceremony by the lake. Eva was my maid of honor. I still remember how stunning she looked in that pale lavender dress, radiant, confident, laughing as she caught the bouquet I tossed. "Maybe I'll be next," she said with a wink. Back then, I thought it was a sweet joke. Life settled into something calm after that. I worked as a teacher at a local school. Daniel ran his small architecture firm. Our house wasn't big, but it was filled with warmth. Morning coffee shared in silence, music on Sundays. A garden Eva helped me design. Sometimes she'd stop by after work, bringing takeout and wine, teasing me about how domestic I'd become. She was still single, still chasing what she called freedom. I admired her in some ways. She was fearless. But I also knew she was lonely. Even if she'd never admit it, I never imagined that loneliness would bring her to him. The first sign, though I didn't know it then, came one rainy afternoon. Daniel had forgotten his lunch, so I decided to surprise him at work. I packed his favorite sandwich, drove through the drizzle humming an old tune. When I reached his office, his car wasn't there. The receptionist smiled awkwardly when I asked for him. "Oh, Daniel just stepped out," she said. "He said he was meeting someone for coffee. Eva, I think?" I laughed then. It seemed innocent enough. Eva had probably dropped by to discuss the patio design we'd been planning. She and Daniel had always gotten along. She'd helped him pick my birthday gift once. Still, something about the receptionist's hesitation lingered with me as I left. Later that night, when I mentioned it casually at dinner, Daniel didn't flinch. "Oh yeah," he said easily. She was nearby. We ran into each other. "Ended up chatting about your garden plans," he smiled. That same gentle, easy smile I'd fallen in love with. And I let it go. Because that's what you do when you trust someone. You let the small things slide. Weeks passed and life went on. But small, strange details started to collect in my mind like dust that wouldn't sweep away. Eva started visiting less often. And when she did, she seemed nervous. Her laughter was too forced, her hugs too quick. Daniel began working late, sometimes forgetting to call. When he came home, his shirt would smell faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine, sweet and sharp like lilies. I told myself I was imagining things. That married life made you paranoid sometimes. Still, I started noticing her name appearing too often on his phone. Eva called. Eva texted. Eva said hi. It became almost rehearsed, the way he mentioned her. casually, deliberately, as if to prove there was nothing to hide. One night, while we were watching TV, his phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it without meaning to. The screen lit up with her name. Eva. My stomach twisted. I looked at him, but he didn't even notice. He just picked up the phone, smiled faintly, and said, "It's just Eva. She's asking about next weekend." Next weekend? We had no plans with her. I didn't ask. I just nodded and stared at the flickering light of the TV, pretending the pounding in my chest was just in my head. I wish I could say I confronted them right away. But I didn't. I clung to the image of what we used to be, sisters, friends, family, and I clung even harder to the man I believed I knew. The thought of losing them both was unbearable. So I smiled through dinners, answered her calls, laughed at his jokes, all while a quiet ache grew inside me, like a storm building behind the horizon. And then came the night that storm finally broke, the night I opened that door, the night everything changed. For a few seconds after I saw them together, my body refused to move. It was as if time stopped, like I'd stepped out of my own life and was watching it from above. Two people I loved most in the world, tangled together, whispering in the half-dark. I think they noticed me before I spoke. Eva's eyes flew open, wide and terrified, while Daniel froze mid-motion, his face drained of color. "Emma," he started, scrambling to sit up, but I didn't want to hear my name on his lips. Not then. Not ever again. I remember how steady my voice sounded, even though my hands were trembling so badly I had to clutch the doorframe just to stand. "How long?" I asked. Neither of them answered. The silence between us stretched so thick it felt like a physical thing. "How long?" Daniel's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Eva, then at me, as if hoping she'd speak first. She didn't. Tears had already started streaming down her cheeks, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not yet. When Daniel finally spoke, his voice broke. It just happened, Emma. It wasn't supposed to." I laughed, a raw, hollow sound that didn't even feel like mine. "It just happened?" I repeated. "Like an accident? Like tripping over the rug?" Eva reached for the blanket to cover herself, her voice trembling. "Em, please. You don't understand?" "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "I just didn't realize betrayal had your face, Eva." That's when I turned and walked out. I don't remember getting to the car. I don't remember driving. All I remember is the rain, pounding hard on the windshield as if the sky was trying to drown out the sound of my own breathing. When I finally stopped, I was in front of our mother's house. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the porch light glowing through the rain. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Mom always said Eva and I were two halves of the same soul. How could I explain that half of me had just tried to destroy the other? The next morning, I didn't answer any calls. I couldn't face the world. The house felt different now, hollow, almost hostile. Every corner whispered their names. The kitchen smelled like his coffee. The living room still had the faint trace of her perfume. Even the bed felt tainted. When I finally looked at my phone, there were dozens of missed calls, mostly from Eva, a few from Daniel, and one from Mom. I ignored all of them. By the second day, Daniel showed up at my mother's doorstep. Mom called to tell me. I told her not to let him in. She didn't argue, but I could hear the worry in her voice. "Emma, maybe you should talk to him." Maybe it was a mistake, I wanted to scream. Instead, I just said quietly, "A mistake doesn't last for months, Mom." Because by then, I had done something I never thought I'd do. I went through Daniel's emails. It wasn't hard. We'd always shared passwords. I'd never imagined I'd use that trust against him. But I needed to know the truth, all of it, and I found it. Hundreds of messages. Long emotional threads. Some only a few words. "Miss you." "Can't stop thinking about you." Others far worse. Reading them was like swallowing glass. Each line cut a little deeper. I saw how it started, a few months after Eva lost her job. Daniel had offered to help her with finances. She'd come over often while I was at work. They'd spend time talking. One message from him read, "I didn't expect to feel this way about her. She's so much like you, but freer." That line broke something inside me that I didn't think could break twice. Freer. As if I'd been the cage, and she the bird. I didn't reply to either of them for days. I didn't cry much either. I think I'd gone numb. But anger has a way of creeping in when the shock wears off. I started remembering every small detail, every moment that didn't make sense. The day Eva borrowed my dress and returned it smelling faintly of Daniel's cologne. The time he said he was working late, and she texted me from a friend's dinner. How could I have missed it all? The betrayal wasn't just in their act. It was in every lie I'd swallowed, every smile I'd believed. 3 days later, Eva came to my mother's house. I almost didn't open the door. But something in me, maybe the part that still couldn't believe she'd done it, made me turn the handle. She stood there with swollen eyes, holding a box of tissues like it could fix anything. "Emma," she whispered. "Please, can we talk?" I stared at her. For the first time, I realized how different we looked. Maybe we had the same face, but hers was drawn now, guilt carved into every line. "Talk," I said. "You've had months to talk to me. You just chose to talk to my husband instead." Her voice cracked. "It wasn't planned. I swear, it just happened. I was lonely, and he was there. You were always so perfect, and Stop," I cut in sharply. "Don't you dare blame me for what you did." Tears spilled down her cheeks again, but I couldn't reach for her. I couldn't even call her my sister in that moment. "Do you love him?" I asked finally. Her lips trembled. "I thought I did. But now I don't even know who I am anymore." I wanted to hate her. God, I wanted to. But standing there, watching her break down, I realized something. She didn't just destroy me. She destroyed herself too. And somehow that didn't make me feel any better. I closed the door quietly and walked away. That night, Daniel tried one last time. He showed up outside the house, calling my name into the dark. "Emma, please. I made a mistake. Don't throw away everything we built." I stepped out onto the porch, the cold night air wrapping around me like armor. "You already did that," I said quietly. He reached for me, but I stepped back. "You chose her, my sister." "That's not a mistake, Daniel. That's a decision." For a moment, he just stood there, his face twisted with regret. "I love you," he said finally. I looked at him, really looked, and realized something painful. "I used to love you," I said. "But the woman who did, she doesn't exist anymore." Then I turned, walked inside, and locked the door. After that night, Daniel finally stopped coming around. The silence that followed was strange, not peaceful, but heavy. Like the quiet after a storm that's left too much wreckage behind. For weeks, I drifted through my days on autopilot. I went back to work, smiled at my students, pretended to be okay. But inside, I was hollow. People at the school started whispering. Word travels fast in small towns, especially when it's scandal mixed with blood. Someone must have seen Eva and Daniel together before I did. Maybe at a cafe, maybe in his car. I'd always thought gossip was cruel, but this time it felt like justice. Still, facing the pity in people's eyes was unbearable. One afternoon, I was sitting in the staff lounge when my friend Leah pulled me aside. "Emma," she said softly, "I heard what happened. About Daniel and Eva, I don't know what to say." I forced a smile. "There's nothing to say." But her words stuck with me. Because for once, I realized I didn't know what to say either. How do you explain that the two people who defined your life, your sister and your husband, became strangers overnight? A week later, Mom invited me for dinner. I didn't want to go, but she sounded tired on the phone, worried. When I arrived, I noticed the second plate already set on the table. My stomach turned. "She's coming, isn't she?" I asked quietly. Mom hesitated. "She's still my daughter, Emma. I thought maybe I cut her off." She stopped being my sister the moment she chose him. But before Mom could respond, the doorbell rang. Eva stepped in hesitantly, wearing a plain dress, her hair tied back like a child trying to behave. Her eyes darted toward me, then to Mom. We ate mostly in silence. The clinking of cutlery was louder than any words. Every so often, Mom would try to start a conversation, but her voice trembled each time. Halfway through, Eva spoke. "I'm moving away." I looked up, startled. "Where?" "Another city. I got a job there. I think it's better for everyone." Mom sighed, tears welling. "You're both breaking my heart." I wanted to tell her that my heart had been broken long before this dinner. But instead, I just nodded. "That's probably for the best." Eva's eyes met mine. "I'm sorry, Emma." You don't have to forgive me, but please believe that I never meant to hurt you like this. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been screamed in silence. After she left that night, I stood at the window watching her drive away. Her car disappeared down the dark road, and I felt something inside me loosen, like the first breath after being underwater too long. Daniel tried to reach out once more, through email this time. The message was long. Apologies, explanations, words that might have mattered once. He said he and Eva had ended things, that he'd made a mistake, that he still loved me. I read it twice before deleting it, because love isn't just what you feel, it's what you protect. And he hadn't protected anything. Still, some nights, I found myself replaying moments in my head. Our first date, our wedding vows, the morning coffees, the laughter. It hurt to realize that even good memories could start to feel like lies. Months passed. Slowly, painfully, life began to stitch itself back together. Not perfectly, but enough to keep going. I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Patel, was calm and warm. She said something that stayed with me. Betrayal doesn't destroy you, Emma. It reveals what you must rebuild. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. But over time, I did. I began focusing on myself again. Gardening, reading, even taking weekend trips alone. The quiet became less suffocating and more healing. Mom and I grew closer. She stopped trying to fix what couldn't be fixed and just listened. One afternoon, she showed me an old photo album. One of Eva and me as kids, dressed in matching yellow dresses, holding hands. She loved you, you know, Mom said softly. I closed the album. Maybe she did. But love without loyalty isn't love, Mom. It's just selfishness. Then came the unexpected twist. One that didn't hurt this time. Eva called me. It had been nearly 6 months since that night. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. Her voice was different, softer, tired. I'm in therapy too, she said. I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be a better person. I understand if you never want to see me again. There was silence between us, the kind that once would have been filled with laughter. I don't hate you, Eva, I said finally. But I can't be your sister right now. Maybe not ever. I need peace, I know, she whispered. And you deserve it. When the call ended, I cried. Not because of her or Daniel, but because for the first time I felt something close to forgiveness. Not for them. For myself, spring came and with it small signs of renewal. My garden began to bloom again. I painted the bedroom, changed the sheets, replaced everything that reminded me of them. I even started seeing someone new, not romantically, just friendship at first. Mark, a colleague from work, who understood silence as well as conversation. One afternoon, he helped me plant roses by the porch. When he left, I stood there watching the sun dip below the horizon, the light warm and golden. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel broken. Just changed, because healing doesn't mean going back to who you were. It means learning to live as who you are now, and I was finally ready to do that. It had been nearly a year since that night. A full year of rebuilding, forgiving, and quietly detaching myself from the ruins of my past life. I thought I'd finally escaped it. Until one morning, a message popped up on my phone that made my stomach drop. Subject: You deserve to know the truth. Sender: Anonymous. Inside was a link to a local community Facebook post. Curiosity battled fear as I tapped it open. There it was, a photo of Eva and Daniel together at a charity gala, smiling as if nothing had ever happened. The caption read, "Small town scandal resurfaces. The former teacher's husband seen again with her sister after months of separation." The comments were a battlefield. Some defended me. Others spread cruel speculation that I had driven Daniel away, that Eva had always been the better sister. My chest tightened. Even after all this time, they were still haunting me. I slammed the laptop shut and buried my face in my hands. I had spent a year healing, and now one photo had undone all that peace. That night, I went to see Mom. She was sitting on the porch, knitting in the fading light. "Did you see it?" I asked, my voice trembling. She nodded. "I did, and I called Eva." My heart clenched. "Why?" "Because I needed to know if it was true." "And?" Mom sighed, eyes glistening. She said it's not what it looks like. That she and Daniel were invited by mutual friends, nothing more, I scoffed. Do you believe that? I want to, she said softly. But I'm not sure it matters anymore. You've come so far, Emma. Don't let them pull you back into the fire. She was right. But anger has a way of rewriting reason. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every lie, every betrayal, every promise Daniel had broken. By dawn, I made a decision. Not out of revenge, but closure. I opened my laptop, logged into the same Facebook group, and began typing. A year ago, I found out my husband and my sister were having an affair. I didn't go public then, because I wanted to heal privately. But seeing them again, pretending it never happened, feels like a second betrayal. So I'm speaking now, not for pity, but truth. Within an hour, it exploded. Hundreds of comments. Dozens of messages from strangers, some kind, some cruel. But for once, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like someone who had reclaimed her voice. The next morning, the phone rang. It was Eva. Why would you do that, Emma? She demanded, her voice shaking. Because I'm done hiding while you live freely. You don't understand. That picture wasn't what people think. Then maybe you should have thought about what people would think before you showed up with him in public. She was silent for a moment, then whispered, You've ruined me again. No. Eva, you ruined us long ago. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, not from guilt, but release. For the first time, the truth wasn't a burden. It was armor. Days passed. The story spread beyond Facebook, into gossip blogs, local papers, even school staff whispers. It was everywhere, and though I hadn't meant for it to go viral, part of me felt vindicated. Until Daniel showed up. He came to my workplace one afternoon, waiting by my car in the parking lot. Emma, he said when I approached. Can we talk? I have nothing to say to you. Please. Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I nodded. He looked worn down, dark circles, unshaven, nervous. I didn't know she'd post those photos. I didn't want this. I folded my arms. You didn't want this? Daniel, you created this. I made mistakes, I know. But I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family. Wasn't that enough? Enough for you, maybe. But I lost myself, Daniel. You both got to keep your lies. I had to rebuild my life from ashes. He took a step closer. Do you ever think about what we had? About the good years? Every day, I said quietly. And that's the part that hurts most. Because it wasn't all lies, which makes the betrayal even deeper. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once, Daniel had nothing to say. He turned and walked away, shoulders slumped, disappearing into the distance. Just like Eva had months before. This time, I didn't cry. A few weeks later, my post began to die down. People moved on to new scandals, new stories. But I noticed something unexpected. Messages from women I'd never met. Some shared their own betrayals. Others thanked me for speaking up. One message read, Your story gave me the courage to leave my cheating fiancé. Thank you for being honest. And that's when it hit me. Maybe my pain wasn't wasted after all. Maybe it had a purpose. Months passed again. Life settled into something gentler. I poured my energy into writing, essays, journal entries, even small online blogs about healing and self-worth. Each post felt like another brick in the wall between me and the past. Until one evening, I received a small brown envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph, me and Eva as children, holding hands on the first day of school. On the back, in her handwriting, were the words, For the record, I am sorry. Not because of what happened, but because I destroyed something beautiful. Take care of yourself, Em. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it inside a box with other memories I wasn't ready to throw away, but no longer needed to keep close. The next day, I took a long walk along the river. The air was crisp, the sunlight soft. I watched the water flow and thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the chaos, the rebuilding. I realized that peace doesn't arrive all at once. It comes slowly, in fragments, like morning light creeping through half-drawn curtains, and standing there, I finally felt it. Not victory. Not revenge. Just peace. A year passed. The seasons rolled by quietly. Summer to autumn to winter, and somewhere between them, the ache in my chest began to fade into something gentler. The scandal had long since vanished from people's conversations. My name no longer came up in whispers. At school, I was simply Ms. Carter again, the English teacher with a soft voice and too many houseplants in her classroom. My garden bloomed again. I'd planted new roses, white this time, symbols of peace. Life was ordinary. And after everything, ordinary felt like a miracle. One morning in late spring, I was pruning those roses when I heard a car door shut in the driveway. When I looked up, I froze. Eva. She stood there in a pale blue coat, holding a small suitcase. Her hair was shorter now, her face thinner. But those eyes, the same storm gray eyes we'd shared since childhood, they hadn't changed. "Hi, Em," she said softly. I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." Just once more. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. After everything, why now? Because I'm leaving for good. I took a job overseas. I might not come back. There was a long silence between us. Heavy, but not cruel. I gestured toward the porch. "You can come in." For a few minutes. Inside, she looked around the house, her gaze lingering on small changes. New curtains, rearranged furniture, the framed photo of Mom and me by the shelf. "It looks different," she said quietly. "It had to," I replied. "Everything did." Eva nodded, her eyes glistening. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. But before I go, I just wanted to say thank you. For being my sister. For all the years you tried to protect me, even when I didn't deserve it." Her voice trembled. And for the first time, I saw not the woman who betrayed me, but the sister I'd grown up with. The one who used to braid my hair before school and sneak me candy when Mom wasn't looking. "I loved you, Eva," I said. "More than anyone. That's why it hurt so much." She looked down. "I know, and I'll carry that forever." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked softly in the background, steady, patient, like time itself waiting for something to break. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "I wanted to give you this." Inside was a check. My breath caught. It was for nearly half of the house's mortgage, the same one Daniel had forced me to pay off alone after everything fell apart. "I can't take this," I said quickly. "You can," she said firmly. "Because I owe it to you. Not to buy forgiveness, but to close a chapter. Please." I stared at the paper, at her shaking hands, at the woman who'd caused me so much pain. And for the first time, I didn't feel hate. I felt pity, and something even deeper. Understanding, because life had already punished her far more than I ever could. We sat for a while after that, talking, not about the affair, not about Daniel, but about memories. Childhood summers by the lake, sneaking out to watch fireworks, Mom's terrible attempt at baking cookies every Christmas. For those few hours, we weren't enemies. Just two women trying to remember who they used to be. When she finally stood to leave, she hugged me. I didn't expect it, but I didn't pull away either. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was peace, she whispered. "Take care of yourself, Em." "You too," I said quietly. "Wherever you go." And then she was gone. I stood by the window, watching her drive away down the same road she'd left on 2 years ago. But this time, there were no tears, just stillness. The roses outside swayed gently in the wind, the sunlight warm and forgiving. For the first time, I didn't feel like a victim or a survivor. I just felt free. A few weeks later, I got a letter, postmarked from France. Inside was a postcard of a small village, cobblestone streets lined with flowers. On the back, in Eva's neat handwriting, were just a few words. "I'm okay. I hope you are too." I smiled, and a small, sad smile, and placed the postcard in my journal. That night, I lit a candle on the porch and watched the flame dance against the twilight. Maybe this was what healing truly looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the quiet acceptance that some stories don't have neat endings. They just fade gently into peace. A few months later, I visited Mom's grave. She'd passed that winter peacefully in her sleep. I placed a bouquet of white roses on her headstone. "Mom," I whispered, "it's over now. We're okay. All of us." The wind rustled through the trees, almost like an answer. As I walked back toward the car, I realized something I no longer measured time by what I'd lost, but by what I'd learned. That forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself move on. In the distance, thunder rumbled, soft, rolling, harmless. I smiled up at the sky. Once storms had terrified me. Now they reminded me that no matter how fierce they are, they always pass. And when they do, the air smells cleaner. The world feels new again. They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned it's also heavier. It can drown you if you hold on too tightly. I lost my husband, my sister, and a piece of myself. But what I found was far more precious. Peace, strength, and a life that finally belongs to me. Some wounds don't close cleanly, but maybe they're not meant to. Maybe they're reminders that we survived what should have broken us. And sometimes survival is the most beautiful kind of revenge.